Hello, I'm Rick Bowen, the principal of J.W. Adams, and I'm going to be reading you today the story Mr. Tannen's Tie Trouble. And like the principal in the story, I also like ties. I've always kind of enjoyed dressing up and being professional, and I've always felt like, if you dress professional, you're going to be confident in yourself, you're going to feel better about yourself that day, and sometimes you feel like you get more work done and you do a better product. Also, I've always said dress for the job or the profession you want, and you'll work towards getting there. I have a bunch of ties like Mr. Tannen, but I do have some that are my favorite. Now, unlike Mr. Tannen, who likes fun ties and things like that, I'm more into traditional a little bit, and I like to be classy, so my ties are more simple. I'm wearing one of my favorite ties, which, even though it has a little bit of a pattern to it, it's overall solid, so I like to keep things simple. And I do like a red tie a lot, especially during like a job interview or going to an important meeting, because I think it makes you more confident and stand out. But sometimes this one's not quite red, but I like just a little bit of a variation on it. So you can see this one here. And then I've got another one that's similar to this, and actually this one I bought as part of a Halloween costume I wore here once, which was to be Scooby-Doo. Didn't even think I'd really like it, but I really ended up enjoying it. But you can see those are kind of solid, or a variation on it. Now when it comes to a pattern, and I've got tons of ties like this. I like diagonal stripes of all kinds, and I don't know why, but I think that they do look kind of classy and look neat, so I'm big into diagonal ties that are diagonal stripes. This is one of my favorites because I do like to wear blue, and I like how it looks. And like I said, these are a few of my favorite diagonal stripe ties, and I really like diagonal stripe ties, and I think it's because a lot of times colleges wore them in the college colors, and I kind of like that kind of preppy look of like college and stuff like that. Now here is another one of my favorites, and I graduated from the University of Virginia, and it kind of combines both. It's a diagonal stripe tie with the UVA crest on it. And then if I'm going to wear a pattern, it needs to be kind of simple, and I don't know why, but I've always liked this black and white one here. But you can see my ties are much more simple and not too out there like Mr. Tannen. But we're going to be reading Mr. Tannen's Tie Trouble. All right, Mr. Tannen's Tie Trouble by Marianne Coca Leffler. Mr. Tannen loves being the principal of the Lyndhurst School. He also loves ties. In fact, he has almost 1,000 crazy ties. When Mr. Tannen returned from winter vacation, he received a call from Mr. Apple at the school department. Mr. Apple told him that because many things at the school had to be fixed, there wasn't enough money left for a new playground. Mr. Tannen sadly hung up the phone and gazed at the broken down playground. He heard a clink clank. He looked up to see Kaylee and Alex lugging in a big jar filled with money. "Here it is, $148.29 for the playground fund," said Kaylee proudly. "New playground, here we come," cheered Alex. Mr. Tannen didn't know what to say. After school, Mr. Tannen sat in his office staring at the jar. He sighed. "Now I'm in a real pickle. There's not enough money for a new playground. The kids will be so disappointed." Mr. Apple's words floated around in his head. "The playground will have to wait. You'll think of something. I wish our account was as full as your tie closet." "As full as my tie closet," repeated Mr. Tannen. He jumped up, opened his closet, and shouted, "That's it, my ties. Lyndhurst School will have a new playground." The next day, the entire town was plastered with signs. "Mr. Tannen's Tie Auction, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the Lyndhurst School. A tie for every occasion. All ties must go." Miss Sweetapple noticed the sign on the grocery store window. She called her husband Mr. Apple. Why is Mr. Tannen selling all his ties? Has he gone crazy? Mr. Apple told her about the school budget and the playground money. The town was buzzing all day. Miss Sweet Apple called Monsieur Bijou at the bakery, who called Cleo at the cleaners, who called Dr. Demi the dentist. It went on and on until even Zach, the night watchman at the zoo, got the word. Mr. Tannen is selling his ties. On Saturday, the whole town showed up for the auction. Monsieur Bijou started the bidding. I'll give you $50 for the donut and Danish tie. Lolly the librarian bought the book tie. Dr. Demi was the proud owner of the toothbrush tie. Kaylee handed over her entire piggy bank for the hot dog tie. Miss Sweet Apple just had to have the wedding bells tie. And of course, Mr. Apple chuckled as he paid quite a bit of cash for the crabapple tie. The auction was a huge success. Every tie was sold except one. Mr. Tannen just couldn't part with his beloved blue ribbon tie. It was a present from Mr. Apple for being a great principal. He looked out at the sea of townspeople, all wearing his ties. Thank you all. I have always taught my students, the more you give, the more you get. With this money, the Lyndhurst School will have a new playground. Mr. Tannen swallowed hard. My ties now belong to the town. Wear them proudly. And throughout the spring, that's just what everyone did. But sometimes Mr. Tannen would forget his tie closet was empty. He would open it to get a tie and with a tinge of sadness he would remember he only had one tie and he was wearing it. Then he'd look outside at the playground being built. You have to give to get, he thought. Soon it was opening day at the new playground. Mr. Tannen had invited the whole town to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. He tucked his speech in his pocket, grabbed his special scissors, and adjusted his tie. He wished he had on his official ribbon-cutting tie. The schoolyard was overflowing with people. Mr. Tannen made his way through the crowd. Then he saw it. Mr. Tannen's playground. The playground was tied in a giant ribbon made from Mr. Tannen's ties. Miss Sweet Apple and Mr. Apple were at the microphone. Mr. Tannen, you have taught us all, the more you give, the more you get, said Miss Sweet Apple. You have given us a playground. We're giving you back your ties. With that, Mr. Apple untied the tie ribbon and announced, Mr. Tannen's playground is now open. Mr. Tannen and his ties were together again. He slipped on the swing and slide tie and smiled. The end.